Kill your skin.
Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Gaming with Grandma. Alright guys, so I wanted to talk to you guys about something. This has to do with my husband's suicide. I've been getting a lot of comments about his suicide, and I know I've been prolonging this. So let's go into detail about my ex. In 2006, my husband had been having sex with a minor. They came into my place, my apartment building, and all of a sudden, I heard bang, bang, bang on the door. And so I was getting ready to go downstairs to answer the door. Someone grabbed my arm and said, "Don't answer it." And I realized after I went down and was talking to the officers, I was talking to them, they asked to see my daughter. So my daughter comes down, I go up and get ready to get my daughter, and this girl jumps up behind the couch. Now, when I got home, I was coming out of the hospital because I was hallucinating. I was seeing things, we were at somebody's house, we were at his friend's house or whatever. And I was on my way home, and I started seeing things. I was hallucinating. And when I got home, I guess I passed out or something. Next thing you know, there's a bunch of ambulance and cops around me. And I was seeing some weird stuff. Something about Terminators after me, and they took my kids, and blah, blah, blah. And when they took me to the hospital, which was the mental hospital, because I had mental illness, they thought I was, having one of my schizophrenia movements or whatever you want to call it. So I went to the hospital and I told them everything I saw and that I thought, blah, blah, blah. So they did a drug screening and found out I had PCP in my system. I didn't even know what PCP was. So I asked them what in the hell's PCP, and they said it's a pill and it causes hallucinations. Because I was on my schizophrenia medication, so that shouldn't have happened. So I found out she put PCP in my soda when I was there, when I fell asleep. My soda was still sitting on the coffee table. So I took a drink. When I woke up, I took that. I drank my rest of my soda, which was a bad idea. But she must have slipped it in my drink when I fell asleep. But anyways, she tried to stop me when I went upstairs to grab my daughter. I seen her jump out from behind the couch. And my instinct was, get down, And I wasn't even understanding what I was doing at that point because I was so tired. And I went downstairs and I told them, I said, I kicked her out last night. And they had me get my daughter, and then that's when I saw her. And we went downstairs and they were talking to my daughter. And I said, wait, are you looking for this girl? I'm not going to say her name. I was like, oh, she's upstairs. And he's like, why didn't you tell us this before? And I said, when I went to go get my daughter, she jumped out from behind the couch. So they went up and they handcuffed her and took her downstairs. And they kept asking me, do you know where your husband is? Do you know where he could have gone? And I said, well, he has a friend. They live on St. Lawrence at the time. And they asked me what the address was, and I don't know. I just know they live on St. Lawrence. So they were out looking for him. And I went upstairs, and I heard some kind of noise coming from the closet. So it kind of freaked me out. I was like, what's in the closet? Because I don't remember putting anything in the closet. So I ran down, and I got the police, and I said, there's somebody in the closet. and I ain't gonna check. I don't know if it's some kind of animal. So they thought it was my husband. So they went upstairs, guns drawn and everything. My two boys are laying on the floor sleeping. And my daughter is being questioned by cops. Did you know she was here? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And they were grilling her, I would basically say it. But they went in her room and they had their guns drawn. They opened the closet. No one was in there. They did my room, which they said, come out with your hands up, blah, blah, blah. They opened the closet door, and my husband was underneath all the laundry I had in the closet that me and my daughter were supposed to take to the laundromat. And he was hiding under it. So they handcuffed him, took him away, and then they asked me and my daughter to come down to the station to give some kind of statement or whatever. And so I told the cops, I said, I seen them, making out. I seen them, goofing around, whatever. I ended up going to the hospital. They said I was on PCP, which I don't do drugs. I take my regular medication. And they asked me, do you think that he put it in your drink? And I said, no, I think she did. And so they questioned me and my daughter, which was really weird because they had left my two boys at home. So I don't know if there was a cop sitting there, making sure those boys were okay. I don't know. I hope so. But anyways, later on I found out my boys were awake the whole time. They heard all the commotion. They were just pretending they were asleep. They said when everybody left, they went back to sleep. They didn't wake up. We got home and I looked at my daughter and I said, good golly, Miss Molly, what happened? What just happened? I can't believe this is going on. But they arrested him. He went to court. I really wanted to go to court, but I didn't. And things happened, and my sister-in-law, she helped us move into a different place. We didn't have to change our names or anything. He wasn't, threatening. But when I came home from the hospital, I found her and him in my room on my bed having sex, and I flipped. I kicked her butt out of my house. I said, get the hell out. You don't belong here. You leave my husband alone. And at that time, we were separated for 2 years. So basically, he really wasn't. I mean, legally, he was my husband, but, yeah. Things happened, and he was trying to find somebody because I guess he felt like he wasn't being loved or taken care of. I don't know. But, yeah, he was in jail from 2006 to 2016. We were sending letters for a short period of time, and then I got tired of his mumbo jumbo. I loved you this whole time. I took care of you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, Lord. It was basically all about him and why I did this to him. And it was pretty, he was a very, how I said in my other video, he was a very caring and loving man. Well, sometimes he was. There was times where he had a problem with drinking. He drank a lot. And he was verbally abusive. He would throw things like down the hall. He worked for his dad because his dad was a junker, where he'd go to places and get cans or aluminum or, iron or whatever. And he would get a lot of money, and he would pay my husband $12. That was enough gas to get home and back, because we lived in Janesville, Wisconsin, and his dad was in Beloit. But when I married him, I did not realize how bad it was. So when I finally said, I want out of my mom and dad's house, So instead of us getting our own place, we moved into that guy's house, which was, I guess, supposedly his friend. And we lived there. I was pregnant with my son, and my oldest son. And he drank all the time. And his friend drank. So they were drinking buddies. I did not feel comfortable around his friend because he was always hitting on me. And having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I literally had to wake up my husband to come downstairs to make sure that he wasn't going to try something with me, you know. We went into the hospital to give birth to my son. We went back to the house, and it was bad. It was really, really bad. So we moved in with my sister-in-law, the one that helped us, get out of there. But yeah, my husband was literally verbally abusive. I mean, he one time got drunk, and we were making fun of his food or whatever, and he got pissed off. He asked me to come here, and he looked at me and punched in the wall right by my head and said, "That was your head." And it scared the hell out of me. I went over, I told my friends, "Let's go." And we went next door to their house, and there was a lot of stuff that he was doing that just wasn't right. So yeah, he was a very verbally abusive. He never hit me. He never hit the kids until I was separated from my boys. I found out later from my boys that he would get drunk and he would come home to his mom's house and he'd just whoop them for no reason. Something would, tweak him off and they'd get a whooping. And the boys said it happened a lot. And I'm like, good Lord. And I told my boys, if I was there, that would have never happened. And they're like, yeah, I know. We tried to beg you to come live with you, but, and I'm just like, if I would have known, if you would have told me Dad's whipping us constantly and we don't know what we're doing wrong and, But I think the boys thought if they told me, I would tell Dad, and then Dad would get upset and they'd get it worse, and yeah. But I got the report. I wanted to go over this. I got the report from the coroner. These are all the relationships that they have. Let's see. Yeah, they found him deceased after entering forced residence. Winnebago bomb squad was requested to investigate a suspicious device taped to his body. He had a huge jug full of gasoline. And I mean, these jugs, those big, huge blue jugs? He had that in his house. He was saving up all that gas he was getting from his sister. He was saving all that up. And he had a piece of tape attached to his body, which had a lighter and a cord. And he literally thought that if he hung himself, he had enough time to light it and kapooey. Which didn't happen. I think he died immediately. I think he had that just in case, he was dangling there for a while. He'd have enough time to light it. I don't know what was in his mind. He had mental illness. They're saying that he had schizophrenia. He was hearing voices. He was delusional, basically. I really realized that all those times that he was telling me that his sisters were trying to take the house. Now, he didn't pay rent. He was living with his mom. And then when his mom passed away, everything went to the crapper. He just, I don't know, he was getting fights with his sisters because his sisters had the paperwork for the house. They could have taken it at any time. And he was freaking out thinking that they were going to make him homeless and they were going to take it away from him. But that wasn't the case. They were trying to help him. And, I don't know what his right mind was, but I remember him saying, if I die, then the house dies. And I was like, what do you mean? And he says, oh, I'll blow the hell out of the house. They ain't going to have it. No matter what I do, if I kill myself, they're not going to have that house. He expected to blow up the house. But with the gas that he had in the container, he would have blown the whole block. I mean, literally, everyone in that block would have been killed. In the police report said that there was enough gas in that container that would have, like, literally blown up the entire block. He tried to kill himself by ODing in September. Talked to him on the phone the last time. He said he was fine, hung up on her. Phone disconnected, doesn't own a vehicle, rides a bike. He keeps to himself in the house. RP doesn't have anyone to gain access. No one else has key. Several depressed lately. No firearms in the house. Of course he can't have firearms. He was in prison. He had one more year to be off probation, and he decided to do this. Okay, so here we go. He isn't answering the door. He's 48. He lives alone. Last contact was a week ago. They waited a whole week before being worried about him. A whole week. I mean, if you're communicating with your brother and you love your brother, don't you think you'd talk to him every single day to make sure he's okay? I mean, he tried to commit suicide and his sisters are like, yeah, he's fine. Yeah, I don't understand what his sisters were thinking. Okay, so even not only his sisters didn't contact him for a week, but his parole officer hadn't heard from him in a week. I mean, what the hell? Why do they wait 1 week when he's already tried to commit suicide once? And he hung up on his sister. They had a fight or whatever. And I guarantee he's just like, hell with it. I don't care about anybody. I don't care about myself. I don't care about my sisters. I don't care about the entire block. Okay, so there's no way to access the residence. Okay, let's see what else these officers have to say. Okay, so the resident was locked on all exterior windows, were either covered from the inside and had obstructed place in front of them, on the interior obscuring any line of sight to the residence interior. Both the front door and east facing and rear door was facing were locked, and family has the doors to be barricaded from inside. Sergeant Tucker further reported that all windows were locked from the inside. I was informed that Hale is required a sex offender. He had struggled from depression. Yeah, they think he had schizophrenia. There's no official medical diagnosis. Okay, so the officer noticed that there was things up against the wall. He could observe furniture or household items stacked and piled against them from the interior of the residence. It seemed to be disarrayed and cluttered. Yeah, so both his sisters were on the deed of the house. They tried to call him, but unsuccessful. They both knocked on the doors. Okay, so the family members, the two sisters, put a note on his door asking him to call them, and they hadn't heard from him in a week. So they asked the cops to come and break into the residence for a welfare check, and then they grabbed the retractable mechanical breach tools. Oh wow, he had padlocked the handle of the side door, so they had to use a ram and set a metal cluster to disable the chain on the door. They had to remove it from the frame that caused damage to the property. Estimated value of the door and the frame is approximately $100. So he had everything stacked. All that furniture was stacked against the windows and the door so they couldn't see in. Oh, and so my mother-in-law, she had all these knickknacks, which were probably worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And when they knocked over, or when they broke through the door, they knocked all those knickknacks onto the floor. So all that money they could have got out of that knickknacks was probably worth more than $10,000 or more. She had collected them from the time she was little till the time she was an adult. So that stuff was very, very expensive. So he wanted to make sure they weren't going to have any money for anything. So the cops, when they entered, they were calling his name, but no answer. Yeah, he made a he made a noose for the thing. And he drilled a board on top of the ceiling and then drilled into this, it was an electrical cord, and he made sure that that thing wasn't going to break. And electrical cords are pretty strong. So he made a noose out of electric cords. That's how he hung himself. It wasn't a rope or anything. So they didn't think they could save him. So they literally just looked at him and said, yeah, he's deceased. There's no way. The color of him, he was purple, and yeah. So he was dead for a while. And they were photographing the interior of the house, for the security stuff. They were looking for a suicide note. Okay, so they tried to find his identification and his cell phone, and there was no recollection of any of it. I think when I, was upset in that, I wasn't thinking clearly on really what was going on. I was basically just upset. So me saying he was a good man, but if he drank, he wasn't a very good man. He seemed sweet and everything when I met him, and he was great with my daughter. He was really good with my daughter. But after we moved out, I realized how bad he was. When he had a job, then he didn't drink much because he had to get up early. He had to get up at 5, get to work. He was a construction worker. He worked on houses and things like that. And I was very proud of him because he didn't drink a lot. And he was the same old guy, nice, sweet, understanding, always loving and wanting to listen to the baby. And he was a good guy, but when he was drinking, good Lord, he turned into a evil snake, how you would say it. So it says here, black wire mesh later discovered to have been taken from a desktop letter holder had also been wrapped around the electrical cord and used as an additional piece of support where the noose was attached to the joint. It appeared, based on the configuration of the mesh cord and miscellaneous wire, the electrical current may be or may have been intended part of his plan for his mechanism. Okay, so he used a styled desk chair with wheels for rollers, was 2 or 3 feet behind Hale, suggesting that he had stood on the chair and rolled it out from beneath his feet. At the time of suicide, observed an upside-down 5-gallon plastic bucket on the floor, also within close proximity of his body. A plastic lighter was on the wood floor next to it. A set of hair clippers lay on the ground near the east wall of the room, and it appeared as if he had shorn his hair and shaved his neck prior to committing suicide, a black shelf or courier-style cabinet had been pushed against the front door and barricaded it. Several hand tools used in creating his mechanism of suicide were the curie cabinet, including scissors, a large knife, hammer, black wire mesh, clear packing style tape, a tape measure, and channel locks. They observed that there was clear packing tape had been run around his torso at approximately his navel. The tape had been used to affix what appeared to be a black colored 14-ounce Proton or propane gas container. A whole plastic cap was affixed with tape, and a shoestring or 550 paracord lanyard ran from the top of the container and was taped to his left hand. Hale was wearing only a pair of plaid flannel pajamas, pants that had been cut into shorts. Waistband of a pair of was barely visible below the shorts, as with the leg portion of the, I'm not saying it, was under the clothes, no shoes or socks. Hale's body collected in them. A further note, dark discoloration. Yeah, because that was from him hanging himself. Okay, so the police offered a chaplain service or to assist in contacting any clerical members the family requested. So the family declined any of the services that they offered. I mean, isn't it like a grief counselor? I am so sorry. The sun keeps going in and out. I'm sorry about that, guys. For some reason, the sun keeps going in and out. 1 minute it's super sunny and next minute it's cloudy. I always have this problem. So yeah, his family didn't want any, chaplain service to come in and pray for him or pray with the family. So they declined all those services, which are free, but they didn't care. They didn't want to have anything to do with religion. They asked the family if he had electrical wire training or anything in trade. And they said that the family did state that he was very handy, that he had permanently to harm additional persons, but expressed a strong belief that recently Hale's sanity was deteriorating. The family also stated they were concerned about the odor of the natural gas outside of the residence, and then asked the family to go away from the premises until the scene was redeemed safe and the medical examiner office had completed its investigation. So they had to call the bomb squad in. So the electrical cord that he utilized for his mechanical thing when he hung himself was cut. So I'm thinking that God didn't want people to die. So God cut it. That's the same thing when I tried to hang myself on the bridge. That big thick rope that I tied around my neck and jumped. And when I woke up in the hospital, the cops asked me, how did you burn the rope? I just looked at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I know God can interfere in some instances. Not all. Yeah, they took a lot of digital photos. So they called the energy company in contact to request them to turn off the gas. I mean, my question is, why didn't the family members say something to them earlier about the gas? Why did they wait till the cops asked them about electrical stuff? Why didn't they tell the cops before they entered the building, saying that they smelt a strong odor of gas? I mean, they're using these tools, and if they did a spark, maybe that was his plan, you know? If they try to open the residence with the tool, the spark would have set that thing off. And maybe that's what his plan was. I'm not exactly sure. But They ended up calling the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit. This decision was made to ensure safety for the scene personnel and render safe for the possibility of improving explosive device. He had it fixed to his body. A plan was devised to escort investigators across through the scene prior to altering the scene for cursory investigation and photographs. Okay, so they notified the family, letting them know that the gas and the water were shut off to the residents. So the family left. They literally left the scene. It's like they couldn't do anything anyway. So, I mean, I would imagine, they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. If he's dead, we're going to go home. We're going to go home and get some sleep. So they said they'd be notified when law enforcement released it and was deemed safe. A robot was deployed to x-ray the container, relieving a possible pneumonia inside. Electrocuted dismissal. The suspect on scene with a small water request to all residents in the immediate area, at approximately whatever time that is, advised that the device had been rendered safe and there's no further danger. So they had to tell the whole block to evacuate the premises. So they literally told everyone to leave their homes and find a safe area to be in. So I'm not sure what exactly the whole radius of the, everybody being told, it's not safe to be here, we're trying to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, he tried to blow up the whole block. And I didn't know this until later on. My daughter, when I talked to the coroner, she said that she would update me. She never did. My daughter had sent me all that. He was a good man when he wasn't drinking, sometimes. He did yell and shout and scream and throw things at me. And usually when he would get, violent toward the kids, I would grab the kids and we would lock the bedroom door and wait till he cooled down. Because there was a lot of times, he'd try to spank the kids and I'd stand in his way. And I'd be like, no. So because I was going to take my boys with me, and he said he could take me to court and they would be able to deem me as not able to take care of my boys because of my mental illness. He threw that up in my face. So I hit my table with my knee. I literally thought that, he could do that. But I should have realized that, he would have to pay for a lawyer and all that other stuff. And yeah. So I was kind of stupid of not kicking him out of my home. Because basically I was paying for everything. And because I didn't kick him out, I lost everything out of that house. He literally just took everything out. And when I found out later, Section 8 had told me that he didn't pay the lights, so he got kicked out. Him and his boys had to move in with his mom. If I would have thought about it, he wouldn't have been able to hire a lawyer. He wouldn't have been able to get custody of the boys. But it was kind of stupid that I just left. But housing told me that he damaged, it was like $300 in damage for Section 8. And that I would not be allowed to have Section 8 until that is paid. So I had to literally pay that. Now, when he came back from prison and was living with his mom, he would call me and we would just fight. The whole time we would fight. Every single time. And I got tired of it and I hung up. Anytime he called me, how you doing? What you up to? What do you do? And I tried to talk to him, like, I like watching this and I like watching that. And it was like we didn't have anything in common anymore. He didn't like any of the stuff I liked. I didn't really care about the stuff he liked, which was probably a default on my part. When he was prison, he went and got his GED, and then he started working with plants, doing people's yards, things like that. But with being a sex offender, he couldn't do that because most people in their properties, they had children. So he couldn't be near any kids at all. So when we moved, I didn't even know what year it was. I thought it was 2015. And here I found out it's 2016. And one time we were arguing on what year it was, and I was so upset with him because I thought it was 2015, and I thought he was messed up and I wasn't, but I realized I was the one that was off. And, when we came in 2016, I remember it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I ended up in the hospital, the mental hospital, because the medication that I was taking in Wisconsin, they wouldn't fill it up in Illinois. And I'm just keeping my light on. The sun's coming in and out. The clouds are out. So I'm just going to leave the light on. Yeah, but, I mean, he even told this girl's mother that, they weren't having a relationship, that me and him were trying to fix our relationship. And that was totally a lie. He wanted me to go and admit that we were trying to work on our relationship. And I'm just like, no. But one time my husband left for work and he never woke me up and said, I'm going to work. Can you watch the kids? No, he asked her to watch my kids. He didn't wake me up and say, hey, I'm going to work. I need you to watch the kids. He never did that. So when I slept, I didn't even know he was gone. I didn't know the kids were up because normally the kids wouldn't wake me up because I had my daughter and she just did her own thing in the morning, which she was she was 14. She was 13 or 14 at the time. And she wouldn't wake me up. She'd just watch TV or she'd play her games on her GameCube, because I got her a GameCube one Christmas. She was so happy. But she actually still has that GameCube, which is amazing. But yeah. So when we lived here before that, I started having seizures in Beloit. I started, it was really, really bad. I was having seizures, every day, twice a day, whatever. And I was constantly going to the hospital. And so, when I went to the mental hospital in Illinois, they told me if I was on that medication for 3 more months, I would have died. I would have been dead. So I'm thankful we moved when we did. If it wasn't for my grandbaby being born, I would have never come to Illinois. I would have never come. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to wake up. And I got to get used to waking up because I got class at 9, so I have to leave at 7:47 to catch the bus to get to school. Because if I catch the bus at 8:55, I'm going to be late for class. So I usually try to be to school early so that way I'm not late. I do not like being late. I would rather stand around and wait for class than be late. Yeah, I mean, me and my husband's relationship, after we moved out of my mom and dad's house, I realized he wasn't the man I thought he was. Don't get me wrong, I loved him. He was, when you love someone, even though they're abusive, you still love them. But if you guys are being abused or mistreated, that isn't a life. If you're being mistreated, and most people think, well, he never hit me, so it's okay. No, it's not. If someone is literally bullying you by words, that's still abuse. I didn't know this back then. I know it now. That verbal abuse is just as much as if he hit you. It's not as painful. I mean, it is, in a way, because he was a very strong guy. So he did a lot of, pull-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff. But I literally don't even have a picture of him. I ripped all, his pictures up. I just didn't want to have anything to do with him, basically. Anytime he called me, he'd be like, how you doing? I'm doing good. And then he'd start, telling me about his sisters, and that he would start bullying me, calling me stupid, calling me worthless, And after a while, I got fed up, and I told him, if you can't have a good conversation with me, then why call me? And that was my fault. I should have never done that because of the mental illness that he was going through, and with his sisters and that. I had changed my phone number because I was fed up with him screaming at me and calling me names. And I mean, did I do the right thing? I don't know. But with him being abusive to me and yelling at me constantly, and yes, I know I told you guys that he was a good man, but the truth be told, there's a lot of things I've learned from my boys since then about my ex. He actually wasn't my ex. He was my husband. I was not divorced. I was not, we were still married. And I didn't realize all this until I talked to my kids. Now my daughter, he treated her like an angel. He never got upset with her. He would tap her on the butt if she did something wrong or whatever. But yeah, he was never mean to my daughter, but he was mean to the boys, which the boys were biologically his. I mean, most people say, they always hurt the stepchild and not their own kids. Well, it was opposite for my husband, which was, weird. The first time, now my daughter does not remember this, but the first time he abused my daughter is I came home from work. She was crying. She was on her bed. My mom and dad show up. And my mom wants to take her for the weekend. And my husband's like really upset and angry with me because I'm letting her go. And my mom calls me because she said I was giving her a bath. And there's so many bruises on her bottom. They're purple. And I was just like, wait, what? And I said, Mom, I didn't know. I was at work. And she says, if he ever lays a finger on her again, he will go to jail. And at that point, I should have told my mom, call the cops, but I didn't. But I did yell at him. I said, don't you ever hit any of our kids again. Ever. And, anytime he tried to do anything, I would stand in his way. I would block him. When I had to deal with the kids, I would block him. I would be like, no, absolutely not. I never spanked my kids. I didn't have to. I would ground them. They'd be on their bed. There'd be nothing. And my oldest son, he fell asleep, and I woke him up, and I said, okay, I told my youngest one, I said, you can get up, you can go play. And my oldest one's like, can I get up now too? I said, no, you fell asleep. He's like, wait, what? And I said, you can't fall asleep when you got time out. And he's like, why not? And I said, because that's the rule. He's like, what rule? I said, well, you're on your bed for another 30 minutes. So if you fall asleep, then it'll be another 30 minutes. And he was not happy at all. He was pretty upset about it. But yeah, he was 10 at that time. And then my daughter, she was like 13, 14. And then my youngest, he was 6 at the time. He had just turned 6. So, yeah, we had a very interesting life, and we lived in a haunted house, which we are going to tell that story in another video, which is going to be a skit of me and my son. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do have to edit this video because there's a lot of stuff that I had to pause and go over with you. But yeah, if you have a family member, and they're going through this and they're thinking of suicide, try to help them any way you can, because you have to let people know that they're loved, because a lot of people, even though they think they're loved, they start, if someone has mental illness and they're saying things that normally people wouldn't say, that's when you need to help them. You need to if you can't help them, then you need to find them help, because there's so many people out there that are suffering, and they need to know that they're loved. I mean, if you guys are watching this and you're thinking of suicide, I love you. I am wrapping my arms around you, and I'm hugging you and telling you it will get better. It will improve. Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. You can even talk to me. Tell me how you're feeling. I'll do anything and everything I can to help you. So I just want to tell you guys I love you all. And I will see you guys next time. Let's do this. This is Grandma signing out. Adios, amigos. Doses. I'm out. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Gaming with Grandma.